Good morning, everyone. I guess we should be starting
Good
now.
morning.
I hope my voice is audible clearly and the screen is also visible.
Yeah, it's audible.
Yeah, thanks. So let's get started. As we touched a bit on React.js project creation in the last session, and we ended up with the TypeScript portion, which is important for us to understand the implementation of React as the language that we are choosing for React.js also is going to be TypeScript. Right. So today onwards, till the last session, we'll be going ahead with the React.js contents only. And to get started, let's go through a small slide deck just to understand what React.js is, what it is about, what kind of applications we can target with it, what is the architecture of React.js application, and so on. Okay. So the agenda for today's session is to have a quick recap of why the JavaScript libraries or frameworks are actually needed, role of the package managers, precisely NPM, which also talks about role of Node.js and React.js development, then the project setup, which we already saw in the last session using the Create React app. So a quick recap of that, some best practices to be followed in order to organize the React.js code and the conventions to be used for the same. Then we'll talk about what React.js is, why React.js, why it is useful, the comparison of React with Angular, the different web application architectures that are being used as of now. So that includes the server-side web application architecture, client-side web application architecture, which is now mostly targeting the single page web application architectures, React.js architecture itself, and then the hands-on part, how to get started with the React application. What is the role of JX? What exactly JSX is? What is the role of JSX is? And which actually talks about some of the practical implementations like create element and uh, embedding expressions and attributes, then virtual DOM, and then understanding the components, etc. So our focus will be on functional components as we discussed in the earlier session also, right? But at the same time, we'll have a quick look at how to create a class component if required. So need for JavaScript libraries. We know to add some dynamic effects to your web content, just HTML or HTML with CSS is not capable of doing the same. If you want user interactivity to be added, if you want dynamic effects to be added, for sure you need to have some JavaScript code also. Now, why JavaScript code? Because that's the only language that is understood by the browser. Correct? In that sense, we have seen that JavaScript is widely accepted and supported language in the browser fraternity. Almost every browser supports JavaScript, right? Most of the features of JavaScript are supported by most of the browsers as on today. And at the same time, JavaScript is pretty dynamic, pretty powerful, pretty flexible kind of language, which makes the development of the client-side code little easier. Okay. Now, at the same time, if you just talk about writing the JavaScript code all the time, we have seen some issues are also there. Like, first of all, JavaScript is an interpreted language. Now, with that behavior, until and unless we don't put the code to run, we don't know if our code contains some compilation errors or some logical errors. It is the browser which actually uses the interpreter and finds out if something wrong, but at times the errors are displayed as vague errors. Finding exactly what is the error, where is the error is difficult. Despite now the modern browsers having the debugger tools built into them, it's not very easy to debug and troubleshoot JavaScript errors, right? That's where probably we got an improvement by getting the TypeScript kind of language, which allows us to write code in more compiled fashion and which is then transpiled into JavaScript so that we get error-free JavaScript most of the time. But then again, when it comes to the JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript implementation, though there are plenty of features built into it, there are plenty of things we can do with JavaScript. Sometimes even for simple requirements also, we need to write lots of code. Yes or no?
Yes.
That is where the need for the JavaScript libraries originate. They contain out of the box features which allow us to make use of complex features with just a little amount of code and little amount of configuration. We don't need to spend too much time in coding something which uses a vanilla JS feature, right? Rather, the library provides a pre-implemented code for that, and we just use that pre-implemented code. It could be something like creating a function and using the function. So libraries are probably having that functional implementation wherever possible. In some cases, the objects are already pre-built and we just make use of those objects and those functions wherever and whenever required in our application. So that makes your amount of code less, chances of errors being less, and increases the overall development productivity or developer productivity. Yes or no?
Yes.
Right. So the examples, if we talk about the JavaScript libraries, frameworks, etc., particularly libraries, it all started with jQuery, which simplified the use of JavaScript up to a great extent. But then people thought that just having some simplification of existing JavaScript features may not be enough. For complex application requirements, we might need more standardization and probably a kind of a framework also in the coming days. That's where some frameworks also originated like Backbone.js, Ember.js, Angular.js, etc. And then some simplified libraries also were there to allow us to work with the UI level features, basically which focus on the DOM manipulation most of the time. So Knockout.js and then React, Vue.js, etc. were introduced for that reason, right? These are just few examples, but then this list is quite long. There are so many JavaScript libraries and frameworks available as on today, about many of which we don't even know. We probably haven't heard the names also. The list is quite big because most of these frameworks are built by the open source community. The number of libraries and frameworks is quite huge. Some of them became very, very popular, and the names that we probably know are of those libraries and frameworks only which became popular, right? Popular and successful as well. Okay. Now, what is Node.js? We have discussed already. Node.js is the cross-platform open source server-side environment for allowing us to write some JavaScript code and executing it entirely on server. And this environment itself can run on any of the platform like Windows, any version, Linux, any version, any flavor, Unix, any version, any flavor, Mac OS, and many more other platforms, right? It is backend JavaScript runtime environment that runs on Google's V8 JavaScript engine and executes the JavaScript code outside the scope of a web browser. Node.js doesn't require the browser. It contains its own environment with its own JavaScript interpreter built into it and is completely based on an asynchronous event-driven JavaScript runtime, which we call as event loop-based runtime. It is designed to build this highly scalable network applications because the user's request doesn't block any thread. By default, it provides high scalability. It works on callback-based mechanism. Your message is taken, put into the event loop just like a queue, and whenever it gets processed, the response is ready. There is a callback which happens to your client code, and that then takes care of the client-side behavior, right? So Node.js can be used to develop the backend services. That is one of the things. Maybe with the help of Express.js, you can actually create the web APIs on the top of Node.js pretty easily. And otherwise, you can use Node.js just to host the web applications, which might be created using HTML, CSS, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or HTML, CSS, along with some JavaScript libraries for the client, like React, Angular, Vue, etc. Right? In terms of React.js development, what is the role of Node.js? This also probably we have discussed in the past. You don't need Node.js every time you work with React. React.js in itself is a completely independent JavaScript library that is used for rendering the user interface or manipulating the DOM of your mobile and the hybrid mobile applications, web applications and hybrid mobile applications. Hybrid mobile applications are those which are built using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the web technologies only, but run as a native application, right? Node.js is just the runtime environment, which might be used for developing, testing your React.js application. And if required, you can use Node.js as the server-side environment also to host your React.js application. If you're not planning to host it on any web server like IIS or Tomcat Apache, Node.js runtime can be used as the web server in that case. And optionally, then you have the choice of using Node.js to implement the backend services or backend APIs. As we discussed, using Express.js on Node, you can build very, very powerful web APIs pretty easily, right? The other way around, you can make use of the Java web services, or you can make use of .NET web APIs also, .NET web services also, correct?
Yes.
This is something which we have already seen and we have already done. We downloaded Node.js, the long-term support version. We installed Node.js and we verified that our machine has got the right version of Node.js by using this command node space -v. So I believe some version 16 or 18 was there, 18 point something, right?
Yes. 18 points.
18.x. Okay, now let's talk about the package managers. Before understanding package managers, we need to understand what are packages. Many times when you write code and you use some library functionality to get the access to the library functionality, you probably need to refer some library. Now, this library may itself depend on some other library or libraries, which may further depend on their own dependencies. And this chain can be very big. One way is to download your targeted library. Then see what all dependencies it has. Then see what all dependencies those dependencies have. Resolve it manually until and unless you get everything what you want to make your targeted library work the way you want, which is pretty time consuming and more error prone process. Am I right? Instead, if I say I give you a package which contains everything that you need to make that library work for you, what will be better for you? Let's understand this with a simple example. Suppose you plan a vacation, some outing somewhere, some place you have identified. Okay. Now there is one of the way. It's not just one place. Probably there are 4 or 5 places you want to visit for a week-long vacation. Nearby places to one targeted place. One is your base location, and then there are other places which you want to touch upon. Okay. So one way is you yourself book your travel tickets. You book your cabs for local travel and for traveling to the other places. You book your own hotels, right? All the arrangement you do on yourself. Also, you have to take care of for how long you are going to stay at one place. 1 day, 2 day, half day. Is it going to be just a flying visit? Everything you have to study, analyze, and plan. This way you will have better control on your itinerary, but will it be actually convenient? To plan for a week expedition, probably you need to spend around a month just to do all the study and plan your itinerary. Yes or no? Efforts will be more. Yes or no?
Yes.
What is the better option? You go to some tour operator who can provide a solution directly to you. You tell your requirement to that travel operator, and the travel operator will come up with all the options with his own suggestions, with his experience. You just need to say okay to one of the option, and all the booking will be managed by the travel operator, tour operator, which includes your travel tickets plus cabs, hotels, everything. Yes or no?
Yes.
What is convenient?
The second option.
Because the tour operator is giving you a complete package put on a platter. Your efforts automatically reduce. Your time also gets saved. Yes or no?
Yes.
That's what package manager do here. You tell what is your requirement for the dependency. Anything that is related directly or indirectly with that dependency will be automatically taken care of by the package manager, right? So basically, package manager are responsible to provide a method or mechanism to install the required dependency, which we now term as package, manage where the packages are going to be stored on your file system, remove the already installed packages, change the version of the package, right? And also to offer the capabilities using which you can publish your own packages also for future development, future teams. Some of the package managers that are popularly used with JavaScript applications or web applications are listed here. NPM, which is the highest used package manager, Second to that is Yarn. Earlier, when NPM was introduced, it was not so powerful. It lacked many features. It was performance deficient as well. So that's where people came up with Yarn. But then eventually NPM also got lots of improvements and updates. And it is equally powerful and equally capable of what Yarn provides you. PNPM was another adoption of NPM with some added features. No more being used as such. NPM has taken over that. Then there is another package manager called as Bower. So these are all different packages or package managers. It is your personal choice and along with your team's choice to decide on which package manager we are going to use. Highly used one as of today is NPM. So we'll be focusing mainly on NPM only. So what is NPM? NPM is the package manager for JavaScript programming languages, which is maintained by NPM Inc. Now it is actually called as Node Inc. or Node Incorporation. It is the default package manager for JavaScript runtime environment, that is Node.js. So when you install Node.js, we have already seen NPM automatically gets installed. It consists of a CLI, command line interface client, which also is called as NPM only, and an online database of public and private package repositories. Private package repositories might be paid ones as well. And this registry is something what we call as NPM registry. It is accessed via the client, the CLI client, and the available packages can be browsed and searched via the NPM official website also. Okay. CLI is good when you are sure that which package you are looking to install, which version you are looking to install. If you want to see the description, if you want to see the other details, it's recommended to go to the NPM official website and find out more about the package that you're targeting. Yarn also is another package manager for JavaScript, specially designed to improve the overall performance, reliability, security of package installations, and management in JavaScript projects. So this was something like which was introduced to overcome some of the features which were lacking into NPM. It was developed entirely by Facebook, released in 2016 as an alternative to NPM. But now again, as on today, if we see, NPM also has got all these capabilities what Yarn used to provide. So NPM is no more lagging behind Yarn. What Yarn provides, NPM also is capable of doing the same. So all the features which are listed on this slide are now applicable to NPM also equally. And hence you see more usage of NPM these days. Is that clear?
Yes.
One of the feature which is not supported by NPM as yet is offline mode. To work with Yarn packages, you need not be always connected to internet. It does provide the support for offline connectivity also by caching some packages for you, which Node package manager or NPM doesn't provide yet. Okay. Now, coming on to the React portion, how do I prepare my development machine for React.js development? We have already done that in the previous session. We need to install Create React App tool, which is not a mandatory one. You can have simply the Node.js environment along with NPM, with the help of which you can make use of the Node.js capability of creating package.json file, initiate the Node project, and then create the React application from scratch from there, right? Webpack, Babel. These toolings can be then configured manually. But that we discussed requires lots of configuration even to have a simple hello world application in React. Many a times, client will not give you enough time to actually just set up your initial application. They might say that, okay, I need the first cut by the end of 2 days itself. If you spend half a day to just have the initial application set up only, you will have only 1.5 days to have some first cut created, some wireframe created, some dummy or POC kind of stuff created for your client. Yes or no? Why not save time there? And that's where Create React App comes as a bundle, which automatically sets up everything for you. Yes or no?
Yes.
Some best practices to be remembered while working with React.js applications with respect to code organization and the conventions to be followed. So what React.js recommendation says, we discussed that. We have functional components, we have class components. React.js 16, version 16 onwards recommends using the functional components instead of class components going forward. For any additional functionality and extensibility, React.js now supports hooks. Hooks are the features which can be used only with function components. You cannot use hooks with class components. Next is avoid using the state, precisely local state, wherever possible. Rather go for the application level state, which allows you to avoid the duplication of code, duplication of components with the help of Redux library. Organize the files related to the same component in one folder. That's always a good choice. If I'm creating a React component, anything that is related directly to that component should be in the same directory or same folder, whether it is static component or dynamic. Avoid using indexes, index numbers of your rows or of your arrays as the keys. I mean unique identifiers, because your indexes may keep on changing. If you are using something as key or the unique identifier, index is not the right choice. You are expecting one record, but it might use the index to point to another record with some data manipulation. That's why use any other unique field into your record for the key. Opt for fragments instead of divs wherever possible. This will understand with the implementation. Empty fragments can be created to introduce any DOM element which is supposed to be nested in another DOM. If you create divs all the time, it will just increase the size of your DOM, which will impact the load time negatively. Right? More the size of the DOM, more the time the browser will take to load your DOM. Means rendering time will increase, which is not good. Also, DOM manipulation will become complicated with bigger size of DOM. Follow the standard naming conventions which might have been set by your team, and some standard conventions are also there. Avoid repetitive code, that's a very general requirement. Use object destructuring for props wherever possible so that you have only the fragment of the data item instead of dealing with the complete data item all the time. Right? So object destructuring, you can search more in TypeScript language. Then dynamically render your arrays always with the help of the map function instead of directly rendering them. And then another very generic requirement, write tests, precisely unit tests for each React component. Very standard practices you have. Yes.
Yes.
So let's get started with React.js itself. What is React.js? A language? No. Is it an extension of JavaScript? In a way, we can say that, but it's not actually an extension. It's a separate library built in JavaScript for providing some specific services, precisely the DOM manipulation services, in highly optimized manner to JavaScript. Originally created by Facebook. Initially, it was being internally used by Facebook for Facebook portal itself. But later on, Facebook open sourced it in year 2013. Since then, it is going strong. You can see the Facebook rendering is quite fast. Even LinkedIn also uses React.js for its rendering. Most of the social media sites use React.js. Netflix uses React.js for quick rendering, where a lot of business logic processing is not there, but a lot of rendering is there. A lot of UI manipulation is there. In terms of browser, we call it as DOM manipulation, and we want it to be quickly done. We want to provide the experience to the user which is comparable to the native Windows applications. These days, we don't like, as a web user, we don't like the flickering pages and the pages which just keeps on, downloading forever, showing the white blank page in the browser. It's quite irritating these days. Usually, the websites or the web pages which take a lot of time to render lose their potential audience in the long run. People look for alternatives. Yes or no? See how the shift from Yahoo Mail to Gmail happened. Email marketed itself by saying that our UI is quite fluid, quite fast. As on today, if we compare Yahoo Mail, Gmail, probably it is one and the same thing. But Gmail automatically got more popular by having the fluid interface created and introduced for the users early in the race. So they are still ahead because of that. Right? So the smooth interfaces, smooth uh, rendering, smooth transitions is what we need. And React.js mainly targets the same. Right? So you can see the second point. It is a JavaScript library for building the UI for web applications. More specifically, React.js provides a declarative library that keeps the DOM in synchronization with your data. I mean, whatever data you have, if it is changing, the React engine makes sure that the UI is always synchronized with the changes. Means the changes are reflected as soon as possible. Much more easier to use than Vanilla.js. Easily extendable and can include the features like routing and state management. For state management, it might make use of the libraries like Redux. The routing is important because it provides smooth transition from one UI or one view to another view. Just like if I'm browsing from one page to another page. Though I might be using a single page application architecture only. I may not be physically sending the request to the server at all. Whatever navigation happens, it happens only on the client. Make sense?
Yes.
Size of React JS is so small that it puts minimal impact on the browser in addition to your application. So that's what the next point is. It is minimal in its footprint, but at the same time can be customized for almost any project. The architecture of React is entirely component based, which means more modularity also is available, allows you to create new custom reusable encapsulated HTML tags that can be used in web pages and web apps. React.js can be used to develop the single page web applications and mobile applications. When I say mobile applications, these are hybrid mobile applications driven by web technologies, but run as native applications only. Got it?
Yes.
Yes. So why React.js? First of all, it is easy to learn. If you know JavaScript, learning React.js is pretty straightforward, pretty easy. The learning curve is almost flat. There are not too many concepts over here to be learned, and hence it is easy to learn. Ecosystem and community, because it is open source, there is a big community which is there to help you out in case if you feel yourself to be in trouble. It comes with a big ecosystem of multiple tools and libraries to support your development as well, right? So it is being compared like similar to buying best of the breed software and integrating it with your needs. React.js can also be integrated with the other libraries and frameworks. A very advanced implementation I've seen uh, where the application was primarily built in Angular, but Angular being a complete framework, MV star based, doesn't focus only on the rendering. And hence it is bulky also. So the UI rendering, UI manipulation or DOM manipulation is bit laggy when it comes to Angular. So people try to use React.js to handle the DOM manipulation on the top of Angular application. So the base is Angular, but the UI is completely driven by React. So hybrid applications also you do see. And then React.js uses timeless technology. It is built on top of timeless web standards or web standard technologies like JavaScript, HTML, CSS. So as far as JavaScript, HTML, CSS are there, React.js is always going to be there. In addition to JavaScript, HTML, CSS, it targets the browser's document object model as well. Okay. Now let's compare React.js with Angular. Angular continues to put JS into HTML, means it introduces more JavaScript into your pages to provide dynamic effects, dynamic features, and give a framework like behavior. Whereas React.js intention is not to put JavaScript into HTML, but put more HTML into JavaScript. So the dynamic components also focus on creating more HTML only instead of creating JavaScript on the fly. makes it lightweight, makes it faster to be processed by the browser. Angular, as we discussed, is more comprehensive framework, while the React JS is more of a targeted micro library. I said targeted. Targeted to what? Targeted to DOM manipulation. Whereas Angular targets almost every aspect of your application on the client side. So it might, your application might have some need of having some business logic being processed at the client side. In such cases, Angular is a better option. If your requirement is to represent data more often than running business logic on the client, React is the better option. Your business logic, if is there more on the server side, React is a better option. Got my point?
Can you please explain once again about when to choose?
Yeah, so when you create a web application, you have some server side implementation, you have some client side. Client side implementation is separated in web application architecture because it is the browser which ultimately displays your application UI. Am I right?
Yeah.
Now, many a times you might need some local logic to be taking over your UI before the data is submitted or the work is submitted to the server or server APIs, correct?
Okay.
If that is the case, Angular is a better option. But if you find that most of your business logic implementation is being taken care of by your web server or the API server, and the client is responsible only to display the data, display the UI, display the changes. So mostly on the client side, your target is to have DOM manipulation done. React is better option for that. Clear?
But that is like mostly whenever in terms of architecture, we will not
Yes.
put any business logic in the front end, right? Most of the time, unless.
Say it all depends on your application. If you have too much of analytics to be performed, you cannot always send the request back to the server, right? Critical business logic I'm not talking about. I'm talking about some user flows also.
Okay.
Lot of calculations happening, and those calculations can be fastly accommodated if they are performed at the browser level itself. Why would I come to the server for the same?
So, what would be the challenge in this case with React?
React basically is not a complete, I would say, the framework kind of architecture, right? If I say Angular has got MVC implemented into it, right? It does support MVC architecture. So you have separation of concerns already. You have controlling logic, you have views, you have models to take care of data caching. At the same time, Angular comes with two-way data binding also. So any changes to the UI automatically get reflected in model, and vice versa is also there, right? React doesn't have it. React has got one-way binding only. Now, how will you handle such kind of scenarios where lot of data set is there, big data set is there that needs to be manipulated? For that, most likely you would say, okay, I'll get it done on server side and only the rendering portion I'll take care of on the client side. So if you see Facebook, if you see LinkedIn, any social networking, or any informational website also, or maybe simple business applications where the size of data is not very big. Even if it is big, probably it is just like streaming data coming to me and I'm responsible only to render it. Okay, I'm not doing a lot of manipulation of data on the client. I'm getting manipulated data fed to me at once or as streaming, right? I just need rendering to be handled. React is okay because React has been built for that. Understand?
Is this one of the main reason that any now upcoming projects which are starting from scratch is good
Yes.
React?
Yes. And wherever you see that, okay, now application has reached to a level where a lot of data manipulation has to happen on the client side also. For those components, you can bring in Angular as well. And you can have a hybrid of Angular and React into the same application. Make sense?
So we can have
Because one thing which is common between Angular and React is both are component oriented frameworks and libraries. Both are component oriented, Angular and React.
yeah.
So interoperability is quite possible.
Okay.
Understood?
Yeah. Yes, okay.
So some component from Angular can be mapped to the React UI, where React UI takes care of rendering and the component logic is taken care of probably by the controller in Angular. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
It could be two separate implementations also. Like, okay, these are set of pages which I'll take care of with React, and these are set of pages where I need Angular because they deal with complex data on the client. That is also possible.
Okay.
Okay. Now, unlike Angular, React does not have any templates as it just relies on JavaScript that is combined into HTML seamlessly. This combination of JavaScript and HTML is what we call as JSX. Just like the Razor pages that we have on .NET, which allow you to have C# and HTML live together. Right? This is something which is favored by the developers who are well versed with and fluent with JavaScript. Here, HTML being coded. Here, I need some dynamic stuff. I just put in JavaScript. React basically focuses on that. So you don't need templates. Okay. Then, as we discussed, React.js is quite smaller in size. Hence, it can be easier to understand and easier to include in any project. Then, as we discussed, React.js is used more by the design, digital, interactive agencies to build interactive websites as well as in the applications in an enterprise, whereas Angular is used more for building applications mainly in enterprise arena, particularly the larger organizations with more complex requirements, right? Though the Angular is also getting lots of updates, lots of optimizations so that it can be good for the website use cases also in upcoming days, but it will still take some time. Okay.
Yes.
Here are the two popular architectures that are used on client and server side. So server-side web application architecture like ASP.NET or ASP.NET MVC or JSP in Java. It is the server which does 90 to 95% of the work. It is the server which talks to database, holds the data, does the DOM manipulation also, creates HTML templates, and sends those HTML templates as HTML response back to the client. On client side, web browser just deals with the web pages which are being received from the server. What my point? No manipulation happens on client in this case. Whatever manipulation happens, it's on server. But then for every small change also you have to request the server. That can be a bad impact on the usability. As we discussed earlier also, people don't like the blank white pages in between the two requests. They don't like the lags. They don't want to see those animations, page loading animations, etc. for long. They want smooth navigation, smooth transitions. Just like if they are working with a local Windows application, desktop application, right?
Yes.
Then comes the client-side architecture with single page application inside. So server is still responsible to provide you interaction with the data. This interaction is exposed to the client with the help of some APIs. Particularly in .NET language, we call them as web APIs. Otherwise, in general, you can call them as RESTful APIs or web services. What the web server provides is the initial HTML page, which probably can be thought of as a shell in which all of your application components will be packed and served to the client. The single page is served by the web server, along with some JavaScript files as dependencies being sent to the browser. And then client does all the manipulation. Wherever it needs fresh data or it needs to update data, it sends an HTTP request back to the server. May receive HTML in response, may receive JSON data in response, may receive XML data in response, may receive JavaScript in response, depending on what kind of operation was called. Got my point? All DOM manipulation happens on client entirely. Is it clear?
Yes.
Here is the React.js architecture. Server holds database for security reasons. All the database actions are encapsulated by web APIs or RESTful APIs. For this RESTful API, you can use technologies like Java, .NET, Node.js, Python, PHP, Golang, etc. For databases, again, you have choice Oracle, MySQL, SQL Server, PostgreDB, MongoDB. So again, RDBMS, ORDBMS, or NoSQL databases, whatever you want. And that's it. In addition, you might have some RESTful APIs providing some crucial business logic, critical business logic as well, which will be exposed to your client. In between, all HTTP based communication happens over the network. And on the client side, you have complete front end driven by HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in the browser context. So you have component architecture of React. You can have nested components also, as we can see in the mid section of the architecture diagram, right? Then these components will be interacting with your server APIs with the help of API client provided by React, receiving all the data mapped to some model, which then is one-way data bound to your UI. And with the help of React, you will be getting the data model rendered into your UI with DOM manipulation. And for navigation from one component to another, you might optionally make use of the React router or React router services. Clear? Yes.
Yes.
TypeScript, I'll not spend too much time on this. We have already discussed about it. What is TypeScript? What are its advantages? And we know that React.js supports TypeScript very well. The benefits of using TypeScript in React application are listed in the bottom half. Variable and bug checks, readability and ease of understanding of code, support for interfaces, better support for JSX, complete IDE integration available, support for existing React projects also because TypeScript is backward compatible with TypeScript, and total community support available. Right? Now, what is JSX? JSX is JavaScript and HTML working together in the same context seamlessly. Just like Razor allows you to use C# and HTML together. Right? Now, one of the important aspects of React.js is its use of virtual DOM for DOM manipulation, unlike any other library except Vue.js. Vue.js and React.js both use virtual DOM concept. The other libraries, other JavaScript implementations manipulate the physical DOM always. Whenever you say, okay, change this UI element. Now, manipulating physical DOM requires the browser to reload the complete DOM, newly created DOM from scratch. So your response time is on higher side. Just for a small change, hardly 0.1% change I've made in the entire content. Why should I reload the complete DOM? Wastage of time, isn't it? Why not reflect that 0.1% change directly in the place where it is required? That will be much more faster. So for that purpose, React and Vue.js use virtual DOM. Whatever change you make, that change is implemented in a virtual DOM. Means here React.js and Vue.js get a copy of your physical DOM maintained in the memory. They make changes into the virtual DOM, which has no impact on the physical document model, which is being rendered by the browser. Okay. Now, with the React and Vue.js architecture, by default, behind scenes, the comparison of virtual DOM with the physical DOM keeps on happening all the time. Especially when there is a change in virtual DOM, this comparison is triggered automatically. And in this comparison, if it is found that, okay, there is some change in the virtual DOM, which is not reflected yet into the physical DOM, the virtual DOM just gets merged with the physical DOM without reloading the physical DOM at all. So changes are synchronized at real time. And that makes the rendering of changes pretty quick, pretty fast when you are working with React and Vue.js. Is that clear? From the diagram, you can take an example. Actually, let's assume there is a web page with most of the static content, but there is one portion of it where there is current time being displayed. Continuously, it is updating. So if it is only the seconds portion which is updating every second, why should I reload the complete page? Why not update that time component directly? This is where virtual DOM helps. Is it clear? It works on callbacks and notifications behind scenes.
Okay.
Let's understand the components. Components basically bring in more modularity, allow you to split the UI into independent reusable pieces, and think about each of the piece in isolation so that there is no overlapping. Right? For every different requirement, you can have a different component created. right? So that is it for this presentation. If you have any questions, I'll wait for 2 minutes here and then we'll move on to the next part.
So will this deck can be shared?
I'll share that.
Hi, Saket.
Yeah.
One small query means if someone is new to the front-end technology and he doesn't know the
Yes.
JavaScript, so can he
Yes.
just go directly to the React.js or is there any prerequisite for that?
I would say there is a prerequisite. You should know at least elementary JavaScript, concept
Okay.
of DOM manipulation, and along with some idea of working with TypeScript.
Okay. Okay. Good.
So again, elementary knowledge is enough, but you cannot just go raw. I mean, if no exposure to JavaScript and TypeScript is there, it will then be difficult.
Oh, good.
Like web APIs in .NET can be created by anyone who has got at least elementary knowledge of C#. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So only elementary knowledge required, and for that you can actually refer to the simple tutorials available on W3 Schools or Tutorial Point website also. That is more than enough. You don't need to actually have a deep dive in JavaScript and TypeScript. Got it?
Good. Yeah.
So not very difficult as such. Maybe a week's practice on both JavaScript and TypeScript should be enough. And when I say weeks, it's not like full day practice. You spend around 5 hours in the week, out of which 2 hours on JavaScript, 3 hours on TypeScript. That's enough. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. So we'll first of all, yeah, go ahead.
Advanced JavaScript is not that much required, right?
Not mandatory, but yeah, in the long run, there are some concepts which you might need to understand. Like React.js is built on the top of the latest JavaScript features, right? ES 2015 and ES 2016. So some of the features from there you will require to learn, but that is something which is not required immediately. While starting with React.js, along with React.js itself, you can learn that. And these are the features which comes from advanced JavaScript. Okay. Like you might need to know closures. You might need to know the other standards like uh, something what is called a spread operator, right, etc. That you can learn along with React also. Okay.
Saket,
Yeah.
Vivek this side. Actually, this is a out of scope question. So
Yeah.
between the learning platform, between Udemy and the plural site, right? So which will be the better approach to go with for the conceptual clear?
Okay. So with respect to the self-learning you are talking about, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So Udemy, if you see, gives you pretty good tutorials, which targets the basic to intermediate level of understanding. Though there are some advanced features also, but those are very targeted to some specific modules or specific features of the framework only. So I would say for basic to intermediate, you can follow Udemy. But if you're looking for intermediate to advanced and more comprehensive learning, in that case, plural site will be a better option.
Okay. Got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So understanding of React is okay if you take it from Udemy, but how to actually use React in a real life project, that requires more comprehensive knowledge, correct?
Right.
That's where plural site makes the difference.
Right.
Right?
And
Its
Saket, another
tutorials are
question.
more case study oriented, basically. That's what I mean.
And Saket, another question from the .NET actually. I just got a
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah.
Uh, when we put a debugger right in a code, and
Mm,
suppose it's a iteration in a for
mm,
loop.
mm.
So and we are iterating through thousands of record. So exactly what record the error occurs. So we need to iterate multiple times until unless that error got
Yes.
catch, right?
So you can
So
use
what is the best
conditional
approach?
breakpoints. You can use conditional breakpoints in such cases.
Okay, okay, okay. So directly it will hit the error where it will occur, right?
Correct. So there are multiple options. Like if you want to break only when there is an exception, you can put your condition like that. Or if you see that total number of iterations are, let's say, around 10,000, and you feel that somewhere after 6,000 iterations it is failing. That is your assumptions or your guess. So you can actually put the breakpoint in such a way that first 6,000 iterations it doesn't hit the breakpoint. 6,001th iteration it will hit the breakpoint, and there onwards it allows you to go line by line also. So it depends. I mean, what kind of error it is and what is the severity of it, and sometimes we might require to go through multiple iterations, uh, even if we know that the issue is at one specific iteration only. But still, some iterations before that and some iterations after that also we might want to check.
Right.
So,
So it should
so
go with a
all
conditional
correct,
breakpoint. Okay,
conditional breakpoints. So when you
correct.
apply the breakpoint, you right click on that breakpoint and there you have the options to see the conditions, right? Where you can actually apply the conditions.
Got it. Got it. Yes. Yeah.
Right. Let me quickly open one of the Visual Studio stuff. I'll just show you where you can find that. The web API we created, which was talking to the database with Entity Framework Core, right? I'll just use that as a sample. Suppose this is my controller department's API, and here I want the breakpoint to be placed. So this is the breakpoint. I can right
Right.
click on it and see here I have conditions. So you can specify your conditions. What expression you want, whether it is hit count. So this hit count might be interesting when it comes to the sequential execution of a loop. You can have
Right.
filter also created, which might be like checking for some thread, maybe something like the exception is of this type, and then conditional expression is more elaborated,
Right.
right?
Right. So the
And then
hit
you have
count will be like means in the sequence how many after how many hit it
correct,
should start the debugging, right?
correct, correct,
Okay. Okay.
right. So all options from here can be explored. Got it?
Yes. Yes. Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So time for break. We'll resume at 11:10 and we'll move into the implementation part. Okay, the hands-on. So here onwards, it will be all hands-on till the last day. Okay. So
Thank you.
I just repeat, we'll be back at 11:10.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Hey guys, I'm back. Shall we proceed?
Yes, Saket.
Okay. So let's open a command line instance. Switch to the directory where our demos are present. Okay. Here I want to create a new, completely new React application. And how we create that? We already installed create React app the other day. I can say create dash React dash app. For those where create React app was not recognized, can use npx create React app, right? We'll name this application as keep track. And I want TypeScript to be used. So here I say hyphen template. As TypeScript. Default template is JavaScript, correct? Press enter and this should just get the project creation started. So it seems to be ready. I'll just say cd keep track. There I say code space dot. Open
Uh,
VS Code in the correct folder.
Give us some
Yeah.
time, it's taking.
Yes, yes. So meanwhile, we'll just go through the project structure here. We know that the project directory contains node modules, which will contain all NPM dependencies. There are then two important directories, public and SRC. Public contains all the static files, and these are accessible from index.html. These files cannot be accessed anywhere else. This is all static stuff, logos, images, HTML files, CSS files, even some JavaScript files also, which needs to be specific to HTML pages, can be placed over here. All the React.js source code basically goes in this directory SRC. Okay. So any CSS, any JavaScript that you might be using should be placed over here. That is supposed to be targeting the React application. Got my point? Now, because we created TypeScript application, here we'll have .ts and .tsx files. TS contains pure TypeScript code. TSX contains TypeScript and HTML together. .test.tsx basically contains some test runners. I mean unit test cases. Okay. And then package.json contains all of your dependencies. There is a script section which contains some commands. The npm start will actually issue this command. Npm build will cause this command to execute. Test will execute React scripts test. Eject will be React scripts eject. Right? Here you are giving the dependencies also like browser list for production, which versions are allowed, for development, which versions are allowed, name of the application, version of the application, whether it's going to be a private application or a public application, right?
So that day we see the strict, it will be in the TS config.
Yes. Your public folder is completely ignored. Your node modules is completely ignored for compilation. So your paths are already set there. See? Okay. By default, it follows ECMAScript 5, that is ECMAScript 2 2015 or later version. Older versions not supported here. If you want this to strictly follow ES6 standards or 2016 standard, then you can change this to ES6 manually. That's the default structure. You have app.css. This is the CSS for the app component, which is the root component of your application. App.tsx, which is actually the root component itself. And you can see it's a functional component created as a function and has got a return statement. And within return statement, you can see direct use of HTML. This is what the JSX thing is. Now, because we are doing the implementation with TypeScript, we call it as TSX. But technically, JSX and TSX are the same, except the difference in language. Okay. I need not change the context here. I just start typing HTML, it automatically detects and gives full editor support, full parsing support also. So that allows me to write my HTML code with less errors because parser support continuously is there with me. This component needs to be usable across different other files in the project. So it's being exported here as a module. Okay. Now this default keyword can be used only for one of the component being exported in one file. Sorry. Yeah, some question was there.
Yes, okay. So like in Angular, so we'll be having the module.ts, so where we have the startup module. Then when I run the application, first it
Yes.
goes to the main, then it
So
finds
here
the
it
index.
is.
So can you explain how it is working in React?
Yes. So here this index.tsx basically is your entry point. This is something which configures your startup. Here you can see we are identifying some element from the DOM named as root. Now where this root is defined, in public folder you have its index.html, and if you scroll a little bit, there you will have a div with the ID root, which is empty. Right? This is what is being accessed over here in index.tsx as HTML element. And then we say root.render the React extensions. Here we are saying create the instance of app component. So from here, the execution is handed over to your app component. Clear? So this is just like main method. Clear?
Yes.
So pretty simple and straightforward as such. Okay.
Yeah. So unlike Angular, so where in the module we mentioned the browser, then it goes to the main.ts and it
Correct.
refers.
Correct. So that's the same role being played by index.tsx here. Okay.
Okay.
No direct comparison because the way how both the things work is different. But yeah, conceptually, they are playing the similar role of entry point, right?
Yes.
Now, how do I run this? If you all are done with the application creation, can we proceed?
Yeah. For me, it's created. Others can respond.
I just need to say npm start. We did that in the previous session also. So if all good, your application server should start and a browser window should automatically be launched with the command line showing something like this: compiled successfully, all green, no red entries means no error. Red entry means there is an error. This is what you get by default. I want to make some changes here. So I go back to VS Code and my implementation is there in app.tsx. I want to modify this, learn React.js. My application server is still running, remember that. More changes. Okay. I want little bit of formatting over here as well. So I want this to be including an inline CSS style. So here I say style equals color equivalent green. CSS style. Not detecting. Okay, I'll just remove this. Here I'll say this is span. A span goes after the text. It's not picking up style. Just a moment. Yeah, a little bit of syntax being different here because we are using the JSX syntax. It has to be put like this. Curly braces, first of all, to configure the style object as an object, JavaScript object. And within that, then we have the key and value pairs, typical JSON format I have used here. So this will automatically be rendered as HTML style only by the browser. Okay, so this was just to highlight the changes here. And say, I just need to save the modifications. I don't even refresh the browser here to get the change reflected. This is something what we call as hot reload. The moment you make changes and save them, automatically behind scenes, your changes are compiled. Automatically, you don't need to trigger the compilation. You don't need to stop the server and reload the server. It just allows you edit and continue. You can see that once again. I'll not refresh the page. I'll arrange it this way and you can see the changes immediately. What I'll do is I'll just change the color here. Instead of green, I say this is going to be orange. Just wait and watch. Orange, I'm in this context only. The file is not saved. This black dot says so. I just press Control S key combination to get the file saved and do nothing else. I didn't even switch to the browser, but you can see in the background, the browser has automatically updated to the new color. I revert back to green and save. Immediately it changes. So that makes your development highly productive. Yes or no?
Yes.
Useful, isn't it?
Yes.
Just try to understand this structure. Functional app or functional components. And because this component needs to be usable across the files as a module, we are exporting it. Only exported modules can be then imported in other files. Like in index.tsx, you will see app is being imported, right? This is going to work if and only if it's an exported module. If I don't export this, let's say I comment this out. If index will immediately have an error. Yes.
Yes.
Moment I put it back, there is no error here. It's detected. These are some of the basics you need to remember. Imports are like import any module or any file, any content from other files. Got it? Like here we are importing the CSS file. We're importing the logo.svg file. Here we are importing the React module itself. Not being used directly here. That's why it is grayed out. So even if I remove this statement from here, it will not make any difference on my application, which is currently being executed. Clear?
Yes.
Now, for this project to build correctly, you must have package.json with this name only. You must have public folder with index.html file mandatorily placed into it. And src folder must exist, which must contain index.tsx. These are mandatory things. Now app.tsx can be renamed to whatever you want. If I rename this app.tsx and I rename this function app to application, I just need to make changes necessarily over here. So rename of all the files is allowed except the two folders public and src, index.html file and index.tsx file. Everything else can be renamed. These three names are basically, these four names are basically being used somewhere in a hard-coded manner by your Webpack tool, which is actually doing all the bundling of the application to make it deployable. Is it clear?
Yes, Saket. So in line number you mentioned root. So somewhere we need
Yes,
to see that where we in
this
index
route,
data.
right?
Yeah.
So it is here. Even this is renamed. This can be renamed as well. So if I say this ID is entry point, I can just make the necessary change over here where I am detecting it in index.tsx. Instead of root, I'll search for entry point. Clear?
Oh, yes.
So all React output I'm collecting and I am injecting as inner HTML into this element. Inner HTML is the property of any HTML DOM element, right?
Yes.
So what it is doing is picking up all the output from React based on this configuration and injecting it into as inner HTML of this element. Okay. I hope this is clear to all.
Yes.
Now, how do I stop my server? Just go back to command line and press Control C. Type Y and press enter. Your server is stopped. To verify this, you can just go to the browser and refresh the running application over there. You should get some error page like this. Localhost refused to connect, right? Depending on which browser you are working with, the messages might be different, but your page will be unavailable henceforth because your server is stopped. It's not running anymore. Clear? Yes. Now I want to integrate some theming framework here. In the previous session, we saw how to integrate Bootstrap theme. For this project, we'll not be using Bootstrap. We'll be using another theming framework called as Mini. So again, it is just one NPM package which I need to install. So on the project path where package.json exists, just say npm I for install mini.css. I'm looking for a specific version 3.0.1. So I can put the specific versions also with @ symbol and press enter. This will get the mini theming framework, CSS based theming framework added to my project. And whether it's done or not, I can verify by going to VS Code, node modules. Here I'll look for a folder by the name of the package which I installed. So in our case, it is mini. So here you can see mini.css distribution folder. It has got all the CSS files. There are multiple flavors of it. Mini dark, mini default, mini node. Which one you want to integrate depends on which of this theme you actually, which flavor of this theme you actually integrate. Understand? This is just like Bootstrap. Bootstrap also comes with similar stuff. Alternatively, you could have integrated Bootstrap also. No problem with that. Is that clear?
Yes.
And see, the entry of this must be already put into package.json as well as a dependency. Is this a dev dependency or prod dependency?
So dev dependency.
It's a prod dependency because the theme CSS has to be deployed along with your application, isn't it?
Yes.
So if you go to package.json, see where it is added. Dependencies or dev dependencies?
Dependencies.
Dependencies means it's a prod dependency, right? Also, we didn't use the flag save dev, right?
Yeah.
Save dev basically ensures that it is added as a dev dependency. Got it?
Yes.
Now, let's make some changes further. Let's open app.tsx file. Let's comment out this import statement, which is importing the logo, SVG file. Then comment out all the content inside return function. I don't want any of this to be working. Save this and just visit the browser. Make sure your application is running. As we stopped it earlier, I have to again say npm start. I should be able to see the changed content. Error is fine because return statement has to return something. And we have commented all the code. That's why the error. Understand? So that's fine. You just go to VS Code and then put your new stuff here. Let's say I'm looking for an HTML element called as block code with site attribute set to Benjamin Franklin. I'm just going to use a quote made by Benjamin Franklin. And then here I put the code. Okay. Save. This is basically to understand the changes further. Save this and have a look at the browser output. So it has got this. Keep plain. Yes. No theme usage as such as of now. Yes or no? To apply the theme, let's go to index.css file. Let's comment all the default CSS configuration from within it. You can actually delete this as well. We'll never ever require this. Say I want to integrate with the theme which I have installed. So I say import. I need to give the path of the theme. Now path of the theme, we know it's in node modules folder. So with respect to current folder, I need to go one level back. Then there I search for node modules, within which I start for mini .css, within which dist, within which then one of the flavor from here. So let's say dot dot, which takes me one level back, slash node modules, slash mini.css, slash list slash. I can go for dark one, I can go for default, I can go for not. 3 flavors are there. Now there are 2 versions of each of the theme. One is .css, one is .min.css. Those who have worked with web applications in the past probably know what is the difference. Can someone throw light?
Minified version of the CS.
Content wise, technically this and this is exactly same. Minified version means all the white spaces unnecessarily added are removed. The variable names or identifiers, which are long ones, are converted to short ones, and the dependent code is updated for the same, so that the size of the file becomes as small as possible. So it is a compressed version, right? Good for the prod. For dev, you can go ahead with this in case if you want to do some debugging. But if it is a ready-made theming that you might have used, like in our case, mini.css is ready-made one, I will prefer to go with the minified version directly. Right, so here I say mini default min.css, save, and see the impact directly here. Do you see any difference? The way how the quote is presented is different. The font has changed, font style has changed, and the citation also has been included. Because some CSS for block quote and CSS for site already must be there in mini.css theme. Clear?
Yeah. Previously that Benjamin was not coming.
Correct. And it was plain text only, right? No styling was there. This UI was not there, which actually makes it look like a block code. Correct?
Yes.
How
I
the
make a
below one
small-
came up? How the
Sorry?
this, heading Benjamin Franklin, that name
That is
heading?
defined within this theme itself. Understand?
No, he is asking to show that app.ts file. So
Yeah,
here
so
we added the site.
Okay,
site.
side.
It is picking up this site. I mean, the theme is picking up this site attribute and displaying that in the browser. Understood?
Yeah.
Okay. Now I make a small change here. Instead of default, let's say I go for mini dark .min.css. Same theme, but with more dark elements being used. In the background, the black color will be abandoned. Save and have a look. This is something like power saving version of the theme. If you want your user to be able to select the theme, you can actually create a separate component for that, where he can make the selection of the theme and you can allow him switching as per his choices, personal choices, right? Overall look and feel is the same, just the darkened version. Next, I want to try node. So here I go for mini node min.css. Save.
Saket,
Yeah.
that double quote is coming from the site, right? Block quote site.
Correct. Block quote is creating double quote.
Got it. Yes.
Site is giving this Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
Double quote and this bar and the box. I'm not sure whether it's visible on my screen, but on your screen you can see. Due to resolution, it's not getting displayed here, but on your screen you can see there is some shading behind this text, right? So that is all because of block quote. Block quote and the theme picked up from mini.css is making this UI. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, because of that block code, we are getting that code.
Correct. I again revert back to default. I like that the more modified version is basically little faded out version of default. So I go back to default and I see the change. See, this is much more brighter and I like this. So you can pick up default or you can pick up dark edition or modified edition, whichever you like, and just keep it that way. Okay.
Yeah, that quote is inspiring. Tell me, and I forget.
Yeah. So basically, I just Googled and picked it up. Okay.
Thank you for the wonderful quote.
Yeah. Say thanks to Benjamin Franklin himself.
But you
Because
only
quote is
revealed.
from- yeah. And to me, it is Google who revealed. So thanks to Google as well. Okay. So let's move ahead and see how do I create my own component.
Look at this mini.css. Where exactly it is, I'm unable to find out.
In node modules folder, if you see.
The node modules.
No, actually, you need to install that.
Yeah, you need to install it first. So what I did, I'll just show you again. I use this installation command npm space I space mini.css at the rate the version 3.0.1. So once this package installation is completed,
Okay.
you will be able to find it in node modules. There will be a subfolder named as mini.css. So I go back here under node modules.
Okay, got it.
Here it is.
Can you ping that command? And
Sure. npm space I mini.css at 3.0. Just check your chat box.
got it. Thank you.
If you don't give the version number over there, just end up with mini.css. The latest version of the package will be installed. Clear?
So is it not comes along with the ng module? Why this mini dot why we are installing?
It's
This is an
not the
external.
part of the React project as such by default, because theming can be personal choice, right?
Yeah.
Someone
So
might
this is
want to use
something
Mini.
which we have
Someone
taken.
else might use Bootstrap. Someone else
Right.
might say that, okay, I'll create my own theming. So that's why it is optional. Yeah, Bala,
This
you are
is
trying to ask.
third party one, right? This one.
Yes. Separate package in itself.
Separate package. Okay.
Yeah. Let's close all open files. And now the next thing I want to see is how do I create my own component, right? So for that, go to Visual Studio Code. Now you can actually collapse node modules. It's a long folder. Public folder also you can collapse. Keep SRC folder open. Select SRC and then use new folder option there. And name the folder as the name of your component. So let's say I'm going to go for the name as projects. Okay, so make sure all small letters are used. And spelling is correct, projects. Okay, Once this is done, keep this folder selected and say new file. Name the file as projects page.tsx. Here you can use Pascal casing, no problem. To start with, I just want some simple HTML to be placed. Let's say projects displayed as header. Will this be enough? No, actually. I need this to be used as a component. So the point is my target is to return this whenever this component projects page is invoked. Okay, so let's cut this from here and give it a shape of a React component. It always starts with import statement. I want to import React from React. Then my functional component comes up. So I say function. I'll name this as projects page. Here goes the function body, which contains the return statement. Return always returns the output from what you mention in the parenthesis. So make sure you give parenthesis. I want to return a div element over here, within which I want H1 projects to be placed. Now this is what I was talking about. Adding another div under div with the ID root will just increase the DOM size. So if I want a placeholder to be used here, which allows me to have some kind of nesting, but at the same time doesn't impact the DOM tree, I can just say, don't use any tag there, just use empty element. This is something what we call as fragment. Understand?
Okay.
And then in order to make this component files in my project, what I need to do? Export default projects page. I can do exact same thing with a different syntax also. So here itself I can say export default function projects page. One and the same thing. If you have multiple functions to be created here and one of them to be exported as default, then you have to put export statement separately. Understand?
Yes.
Save this. Now, will this be available directly in my UI?
No.
Why?
You have to again import this.
I have not integrated this new component yet into my main component, right?
Yeah.
Neither an index nor an app, correct?
Yeah.
So I have to do that integration here. And for that, I'll just go back to my app.tsx. Maybe I can now comment this block code. This was just to understand the use of theme, right? Here I say import the new component that we have created. Current folder slash. There is a subfolder created now by the name projects slash. What is the name of our component?
Projects page.
I should have put that in quotes. This can be single quote or double quote, doesn't matter. I'll say dot slash projects slash projects page. You don't need to mention the file extension. Just give the file name without extension here. That's the first step in integration.
But
And
for
then here,
CSS, we need to give extension, right?
sorry,
But
for
for CSS,
CSS,
we need to give it.
yes, no doubt. Then just after this, here I say if I want to use a specific class from mini CSS named as container, I say class name equals to container. Within that, I want to render my projects page component. If, oh yeah, I didn't give the name over here, so it automatically make the correction. I remove this. Otherwise, you can just put this explicitly. I was not looking to import just the module file. I was looking to import this component also. So the complete import statement will be this. Okay.
Can you scroll it down?
Yeah. Once done, just save and have a look here. Projects is what the output you should be getting. Yeah.
I'm getting error.
Share your screen.
Yeah. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
So here, this one was the problem.
Yeah. Remove that. Remove that. I actually forgot to put the component name there. So the code editor automatically makes the necessary change, but that incomplete import statement was giving the error probably for you. Got it?
Yeah, this, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions, guys, so far?
Here, when we say container,
Yeah. That's just a class defined in mini.css. And this is similar to the container that we have in Bootstrap also.
So how do
So
we
this
know, like for a new person, like
documentation only can help. Just like Bootstrap, you need to refer documentation initially, right? So you have documentation for mini.css also. Okay. So just give me a moment. I'll look for the documentation URL and I'll share that with you.
I get some projects pages cannot be used as a component because
Just one moment.
okay.
Yeah, so just check your chat box first of all for the URL of the documentation for mini.css. You can just go through this to understand what all built-in classes are available. Okay.
Okay. I have just kept the same way, like project's name also. It's saying like a cannot be used as a JSX component.
Okay, just share your screen. Most likely that incomplete import statement must be the reason. Go to VS Code. Go to the top.
Go to
Okay, so this is fine. Import projects page from /projects page. Save, go to projects page.tsx. Save this file.
Yeah, save.
Now come back to app.tsx. Save this file as well.
Yeah.
Still giving error, is it?
Saket, in project.page, can you go to that file?
Yeah.
Project. So the return, you have to put this in the return
Yeah,
statement.
the return statement
Yeah.
is missing here. Correct.
Yeah.
Return parenthesis.
Yes.
Parenthesis, not curly braces.
Okay. Right.
Right. Save. There should be no issue now. Just save all.
Yes. Right.
Otherwise, change will not be reflected. Go to project.
So here,
page.
one more thing. I have just mini.cs. I'm unable to see here. I've just installed it.
Yeah, it's a long list, so you have to be very careful.
Refresh it.
Can you go to package.json one?
Packages, I guess.
See if mini.css is included here. It's not, right?
Yeah, but I have installed it.
Dependencies. Can you go to command line?
So I have to install
Switch to
under
the,
the
yeah,
under the
switch to the
project, right?
folder of your project. Keep track. So just type cd, keep track there on command line, and then reissue the command. Now it should get added.
Okay. Okay.
As
Thank
this
you.
is done, you can say npm start also.
Okay.
Everything will be okay.
I think you
Any
need
more
to
questions?
save that file, project project page.
Yeah, project page.tsx.
It is
So
not
Bala,
been
you can
saved.
switch to projects page.tsx file.
Yeah.
And press Ctrl S.
Yes, I have done it.
Yeah, now run it.
Yeah, npm start.
Actually, Saket, in Angular, we call that selector, right? That project.
Yeah.
So here also the same term is used,
Uh,
or
Conceptually, yes. We don't call the name as selector because we don't have templates here, right? But yeah, the same behavior is being provided by that document.getElement by ID in index.ts, right?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I'll share my screen. Now let's move on to little more complexity where I want project model class to be created and the data of the projects to be displayed there. So I'll give you the background of this example. We are actually looking to build a mini project tracker kind of application where we can see the status of the ongoing projects. Okay. Fine.
So here we will be using the web API's backend, or
Actually, eventually we'll end up using the web API backend. But to start with, we won't be using that. We will be actually going with some hard-coded data. Right. So
Okay.
gradually we will end up creating the APIs. Okay.
Yeah.
In a sequential manner, we will be learning features and adding those features into this project as we discussed the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you.
Okay. So close all the open files and then make sure you have selected your projects folder here. And there you say new file. Name this file as project.ts. This is not going to contain any TXSX code, so I will just name it as .ts. Only plain TypeScript code will be there. Got it?
Yes. Thank you. இந்த நீ சாப்பிடு.
Okay, just look at the chat box. I'm sharing an URL there. Open that URL once you get this. So you should land up on a GitHub repository. Yes?
Yes, yes.
Use this button code. Just click on the drop down arrow and select download zip. You can save this as
Actually,
the zip
we will
file.
not have permissions
Yeah.
to download.
Did you not
Because-
get the access to the GitHub repository, Bala? While doing the Git practice?
No, GitHub, this one thing now.
Just try if we
Okay,
if
sure.
not, we will find some other way. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so save this into the same location where your projects are being saved. So desktop has got a folder called as Quinnox demos React.js. This is where I'll save this. And close the browser.
Saket, so for me it's downloaded in the download, so I need to
Yeah,
cut
you can share this with all others then. If one of you get the access, can share it with the others.
yeah, in Teams same group I can share it, right?
Same group may not be allowed. So if you have any other group where you are interacting,
training on master.
Yeah.
.NET.
Yeah, just check. If that's allowed, that's okay. Because if I do that, that won't be shared. That won't be accessible to you.
Preparation for the training is not allowing me to chat.
See if you have any common folder, shared folder on your company network from where everyone can access it. OneDrive is also blocked, right? Otherwise, I could have placed this on OneDrive.
Bhushan, are you there?
Yes, Barnabas.
So, are you able to chat in that training on mastering.net Quinnox?
Which one?
No,
The
you
current training chat, right? You're saying?
yeah. So, are you able to send the files?
Yeah, I'm just checking. Just means I'm
Other way
not.
around, if you have the access to OneDrive within organization, one of you can put that in OneDrive folder and share that URL with all.
Maybe initially I will share with him, Bala. He only is not having.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I shared with him. I think others might have raised their ticket and got the access to download.
I'm able to download actually. I will try to
Yeah,
share.
yeah. Only Bala, I think he is having issues. So I
Yeah,
shared with him.
I'll get the access. Oh yeah, I received it. Thanks, Bharat.
Yeah, so once the
That
zip
one.
file is downloaded,
Yes, yes. Okay. So we need to paste that inside keep track or
not in keep track, one folder
in
above that. So I put that in React.js
okay.
because
The
this
zip
is just
file.
a zip file. Unzip that. So here I just say extract all, right click and extract all. On the same path, I just click on extract. So we get a folder by the name React Starter Files main, right?
Yes.
Inside that, there is another subfolder with the same name. Go inside that, there are two folders, API and assets, right?
Yeah.
Go inside assets folder. You'll find several files there, many of which are image files only. Yes.
Yes.
So what you
Yes.
do is copy this assets folder. Only the assets folder. And then go to your keep track folder.
Okay.
And paste it into the public folder. These are all static files, right?
Yeah.
So keep track public. There you paste the assets folder. Then
Yes.
close this Explorer window and go back to VS. Now, some code I'm pasting into the chat box. Carefully place that over here in project.ts. I'll explain that code once you're done.
Yeah. Sure.
Model class, basically. Just to save time, I'm giving you the ready code. So that same code you have to paste here and save. Done with pasting?
Yes.
Now let's understand. Class project. This is a typical TypeScript class being exported so that it is available across all the files, all the modules, all the components, right? Now, this is actually going to represent your model class. Just like in Entity Framework Core, we created models, right? Department model. So this is just the same thing. ID of type number or undefined. Name, string, initialized to empty string. Description of type string initialized to empty string. Image URL of type string initialized to empty string. Contract type ID. Number or undefined. Contract signed on of type date initialized to current date. Budget number initialized to 0. Is active, whether the project is active or not. Boolean default is false. And then there is a property, just like .NET we have getter setter properties in TypeScript. So I create a getter property, read-only property is new, that returns me a Boolean value, and it depends on whether ID is undefined or not. If ID is undefined, it returns true, means the project is new. If ID is initialized with some value, this condition will return false. That means it's an old project, ongoing project. Clear? This section clear?
So
Yes.
why do we have that? Okay, written. So you are setting the.
Correct. So whenever someone tries to read is new property, he will get true or false, right? If ID is not set, it means it's a new project. If ID is set, that means it's an old project.
Okay.
Project being created or project is already created. That's the point, right?
Yeah.
An ID will be auto-generated by the server in the backend, correct? So that's why on the client side, it may be empty, undefined. That's why we are checking this to find out whether project is new or already created one, correct?
Yeah.
Here goes the constructor, takes in a parameter called as initializer, which is nullable parameter. With question mark, we make it nullable. And the data type can be any. And why any? Because I'm going to use this single parameter to initialize all these data members. Instead of having so many parameters to the constructor, I said only one parameter I'll use at any point. So here I'm checking if initializer is not passed, just ignore everything and return. If initializer.id is present, assign it to ID. If initializer.name is present, then assign to this .name. And so on. Description, image URL, then contract type ID, then contract signed on. Whatever the date has been specified, create a new date based on that and assign it to signed on, then budget, and then is active. Okay?
Yes.
Save this. And on command line, see there is no error. Done?
Yes.
Close this file. And then in the projects folder itself, create another file by the name mock projects.ts, which will present some hard-coded data for me as I don't have the backend APIs created yet. Clear?
Yeah.
So again, go to chat box. I've pasted the mock project creation code there. Just copy and paste that here. And once pasted, just save. And on command line, make sure there is no error. Once done, let me know. I'll explain this also. Though this is more self-explanatory, but still. So done with pasting and saving.
Yes, it is done.
We are importing the project component, right? Project class from project. So that I can create the instances of this class project. Okay. Here goes the exported constant called as mock projects, which is expected to return a collection of projects, multiple projects. That's why this is being initialized with an array. Yes.
So why a function is instance as a constant?
This is not function. This is just constant object.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Right.
No function keyword, right?
Right. Sorry.
So it's an array which I'm creating and returning.
Oh, yeah.
You can see square bracket means array, right? In JavaScript.
Yeah.
And see what it contains. This is the most self-explanatory part. multiple project instances I've created with some hard-coded data. Right?
Yes.
So around 6 entries are there, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Save this and make sure there is no error on command line. Yeah. I want this
Yes.
data to be displayed now. To start with, I want just the JSON format as it is to be displayed on my component. Clear?
Yes.
So today we will be ending the session there itself. In next session, then we'll see the next part, like how do I take it further to display the user readable format, right?
Yeah.
Let's close these two files. Open your project page.tsx, which we created earlier. You already have the header, below
Right.
which I'll say, let's create an horizontal rule. And then here I need to import mock projects from /. Ports / mock projects. So what I want to import here, the constant mock project which is exported, right? What I want to display with this is just after the horizontal rule, I want pre-formatted text to be displayed as it is. So I use the HTML tag pre, within which I say there is a JSON object that needs to be displayed under curly brace. So JSON, all caps. It's a function. I mean, it's an object in JavaScript, which provides me a function called as stringify, which converts the JSON data, the object format to
String.
the JSON string. And what is that object that is representing my data? It is mock projects, comma, replacer. There is no replacement I'm looking for as such for any character, so I say null, comma, any space that I want to include. Yes. So here I say single quotes, and within the single quotes, I put space, one space. And save. Okay. Once saved, first of all, on command line, verify there is no error, which in my case is not. Then go to the browser and have a look at this. We are able to see the JSON formatted data successfully on our page, which just means that we are able to retrieve data. Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, once we reach this level, the next level would be how do I put it in user readable format? Am I right?
Yes.
So that is something which we'll see in the next session. Clear?
Yeah.
So this is it for today. I hope you understood the overall structure and see there is an intention behind building the entire project step by step. We just don't want the project building activity to be done. We want to learn each and every step also. And I have laid it out in a way so that you can understand how you should approach the building of any React.js application. Right? It all starts with mock information, right? Mocking frameworks you use. In our
Yes.
case, instead of using a framework, we just provided the mock data in a coded manner. That's the only difference. But we do have some mocking frameworks available for JavaScript also, which eventually can be used by TypeScript as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that is it. Now our next session will be on Monday is a holiday, right? So most likely we'll be meeting on 3rd Tuesday. So Tuesday and
Okay.
Wednesday continuous sessions will be there. And then as usual, next session will be on Friday. So 3rd, 4th and 6th is the next week's schedule. Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So long break, in fact, just utilize at least one of the day to go through whatever we have built so far and try to build a similar kind of application from your end based on whatever the current projects you might be already working with. I mean, take one case study of your own, develop it parallelly along with this. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, then. Bye-bye. See you on 3rd, 9:30 a.m.
Thanks, Akhil. Bye.
Yeah,
Thanks.
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 Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.